imagine a story that is like Hunger Games meets Shadow and Bone. You don't have to imagine it because it kind of already exists. Powerless. Now, it's a YA, and so when I was first picking it up, I was like, am I a kid? Do I need to be reading a YA? You see all these? These are tabs. I have tabbed out of this book. And to be fair, some of my tabs, I can't remember which colour, but there's a certain tab colour that I used whenever, green, like a dark green. Basically, I was picking the colours of the front of the book. Is whenever it reminds me of another book or like another story. Not saying that this is copying anything, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's elements. I also want to show you my pretty copy. You see? Anyways. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to give you the lowdown on Powerless, just in case you either like don't want to read it, or I should really be looking at the camera, but whatever. I'm going to keep looking at myself, to be honest. Yeah, just in case you don't want to read it. I don't know why you wouldn't want to. People really aren't in their reading era. Like, come on, guys. Like, I saw this great TikTok. Very contradictory what I'm about to say. But it was like, sometimes the people that are the most interesting to talk to are the people that are well-travelled, well-read, or have an interest or a hobby. And I just think, you know, like people who are really passionate about one or two things. That's scary for some people, but whatever. My screen is quite dirty. Oh dear. Oh no. Why is my screen so dirty? Anyway, so I guess okay, listen, this book, it's got some tropes, okay, because I already said it's like Hunger Games, where you're like battling it out, but then also there's loads of tropes because this is fantasy, okay, but it's enemies to lovers, one of my favorite tropes. I think I have a video talking all about tropes, which you can look at. Also, sorry for the really, anyway, I need to stop talking. The book. I've already spoken for 3 minutes. I haven't even started talking about the freaking book. Okay, so main character number 1, we meet Paedyn. We're gonna call her Pay for short. Okay, she's 18 years old. She doesn't have any money. She's living in Loot Alley, which is like kind of like the slums or like the ghetto of their realm. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but she doesn't have any powers. Now that's a problem because basically they're banishing all the people that don't have powers. So if you don't have a power, you need to be banished because they're like acting like it's contagious or whatever, right? But that's not the case. She's got no powers, she's got no parents, she doesn't really have anywhere or anything to live. The one thing she does have is a best friend, and her best friend's name is Adina. Side little note, the novella that is after this one, not in traditional publishing order but in reading order, is called Powerful, and that's from Adina's perspective. Just wanted to throw that in there now. I have read that. We'll probably be doing a video on that if you want to read the novella or not. But anyway, yeah, also to mention, this is part of a series, so it's not more like a standalone book. Anyway, so basically the only person that she cares about is Adina. But like I said, in this kingdom or like wherever they are, being powerful is like a death sentence. You need to have a power, otherwise they're going to kill you or they're going to get rid of you or whatever. Because decades ago there was a disease that, I'm sorry, I'm sliding off the bed, hold on a second. Oh. You're gonna have to really get used to this terrible angle. But anyway, like a while ago there was this terrible disease and it was like killing everyone, and it sorry, it wasn't killing everyone, but instead of killing people, it was making them like stronger and like be able to control like elements and stuff like that. So everybody will have not everyone, but like there's different categories of powers, and you'll get there. So the survivors of this disease that was going around are called the elite, and everyone else is an ordinary, and you do not want to be an ordinary. So the king decides that the ordinaries are like infecting all the elite people, so he needs to like purge them. So it's given genocide. Not good. Anyway, So usually if you're an ordinary, you'll be hiding, because otherwise you're going to get banished. But when you're found, you get banished to the desert. And anyone who does get caught is going to be like executed, etc. So P is basically pretending that she's a psychic, because she's like managed to learn to make it look like she's a psychic, even though she's not a psychic. And she's like stealing food, and she's homeless, and she's basically hoping that she doesn't get caught. Anyway, we're going to introduce our next character, and now that is Prince Kai. So he's like the typical like cold, like, you know what it is, like he's royal, he's brooding, la 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 la, can't show his emotions, it's not allowed. But he's this thing called the future enforcer. But basically means that it's his job to, it's like he's in charge of security, if that makes sense. But he's going to be that when he's a bit older, and when it's his turn to take over. And it basically means his job is to like hunt down and kill all the ordinary people, and he's already been like starting to do these kind of tasks because of his dad. But Kai has a special power, and that is that he can copy other people's powers. The camera's here, I need to stop doing that. But he can copy other people's powers. So because he can copy other people's power, that makes him really powerful, because now he's like screen sharing essentially, and he's just like mirroring other people. It's crazy. Anyway, so the king's sending him to find a hidden ordinary that's like out in the slums, but Kai's a bit reluctant, and instead of killing the kid who he's discovered is an ordinary, he saves them, but like tells them to like run away, because it's also the people associated with the ordinary will also be either executed or banished. So he like goes, you guys need to run. Anyway, while he's like sneaking away, like after he's like helped the child escape, he but Pei pickpockets him, and then he gets jumped by another type of powerful person or an elite called a silencer, and it's basically someone who can turn off another person's powers. Now the silencers are regulated, so they're not allowed to basically exist except for like 1 or 2 people that the king allows, because he can control them, but he's not controlling this person. But anyway, so the silencer turns off Kai's powers, so he's not able to copy the powers, and then Pei saves his life, and she like beats up the man, and then after all of that she realizes that she just saved the future enforcer. That's crazy. You just saved the person that is gonna kill your kind. That's crazy. She tells him that she's a psychic, but he's like, I can't read your powers, and somehow he still believes her, so he thinks she's special. Does that give you Twilight vibes? It gave me Twilight vibes. Anyway, and then that day or the next day, whenever, everyone's calling her the Silver Savior, and that's the reason why she gets picked for the trials. The trials are like the Hunger Games meets the Bachelor kind of vibes, and it's like all royal propaganda, but it exists so that you can celebrate the king's purge. So yeah, they've televised it like Hunger Games, and Pei gets sent into the palace with all the other contestants. There's like a certain number of people that are picked, and they're usually elites to like show off their power, and that's where she meets Prince Kit, who's Kai's half brother, older than him, and is the future king. And he is like the opposite of Kai in the sense that he's the sunshine to the grumpy, and he's like idealistic and like sweet and all of that. And then they also meet Jax, who is like their 15-year-old adopted brother. And when Pei's in the palace along with all the other contestants and obviously everybody who lives there anyway, she like hates it, because she's like, this is also like, they're so privileged, they're wasting all this food, like, and here I am pickpocketing, and there's all these people living in the slums, like what the hell's going on? And also I'm like in the middle of everyone, and I don't have any powers, and now I'm going to have to compete and I don't have any powers. They're going to realize, and they also are not nice to her because she's like not a privileged elite, she's just like from the slums or whatever. But Kai's there, and he's also been chosen for the games. He knows something's off about her, but it's also obvious from the very start that he's really interested and intrigued in her, but because he's got the emotional range of a teaspoon, he doesn't know what to do, and it's kind of awkward. Especially, like I said, she has no powers and she's just there, and he's supposed to copy powers, and the king, who is like getting rid of all the powers, they're all there. But as part of the trials, they do this ball basically before the first trial, and Pay gets to choose her own seamstress. So who do they choose? They bring in Adina, so now at least her person's like in the palace, although spoiler, that might not be a good reason. Adina's just happy to be part of it, and she's like a really supportive best friend. Kit asks, no, this is kind of weird to me because again, it's the Grey's Anatomy effect for me of like, why are these two brothers showing so much interest to this one girl? And I would just like to say right now, right here, that it does seem that they both really like her, and it's also giving like Throne of Glass, Dorian, and Chol, however you say his name, vibes, because they're giving brotherly too, but these guys are actually like half brothers. But anyway, Kit asks Pay to be his date, but Kai teaches Pay how to dance because they have to dance when to get there. So there are the two brother things happening on. So they're having like lessons at midnight, all the tension, you know, eye contact, hand on the waist, you know what I mean. Anyway, so she shows up to the ball and she's wearing a silver gown and completely steals the show because I believe it's green. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's green. Everybody pretty much always wears green because it's like the colour of the royal house. But she's like, I'm gonna be different, and she wears silver. So then she stands up, but then everything is like going fine, la la la, and then there's a bomb in the ballroom. Not good. And then like Kai gets stabbed. He's the enforcer, so he's like very much involved, and like when everybody's like screaming and running, he's going towards it. But then Pay helps him, and it's great. And then we basically find out that there's a group called the Resistance, who are a group of ordinaries who are fighting for freedom, but everybody just sees them as terrorists. And Pay, she's caught in the middle of all this because obviously she is an ordinary, but she also doesn't really want to do this. Like, she doesn't want what the Resistance is happening to like happen. Anyway, for the trials, all the contestants are drugged, great, and they're dumped in the forest, great, and they have to like fight or they die, and they have to collect bands, and they have to basically survive till dawn. Pay and Kai team up, great trauma bonding for them, I guess, and then they have to fight these illusions, and they almost die, but they also have a cute moment, and I think I remember them kissing at one point. A contestant dies, not good, and Jax, the baby brother, almost dies in Kai's arms, so it's like not fun reality TV basically. So yeah, and then they get back to the palace, and obviously the whole thing's been broadcasted to the public, and then my arms hurt, and then that's when Pay realizes that everybody saw that her and Kai were like close, but the crowd loves it, so then you get the Peter and Katniss effect. Yeah, great. But then Pay's like sneaking around the palace, and she's bonding with Kit, and also learning that the king is not a great person. Oh, sorry, I did shoulders today, and this is not good. And then she finds out that her dad, by the way, like I said, her parents are dead, was one of the founders of the Resistance. So her dad did have power, but very minimal, but he soon realized that she didn't have any, and that's when he taught her how to fake being a psychic. Just a little caveat. But no, he was running an underground rebellion from their basement, and the Resistance knows it's her, so they ask her for help to get into the palace, like through these secret tunnels, and she goes yes. But she's also catching feelings for Kai, and now she's like torn between the prince and the revolution. She's living in a YA fever dream. I just can't even. Anyway, then the next trial is going to begin, and it's like a team death climb situation, and they're all split into groups, and they have to climb this mountain and grab a flag, and people are dying left, right and center, like people are betraying each other, but Kai secretly helps Pay win. And then the king hates this because obviously the future enforcer is the one who's supposed to win, and also is showing weakness from the future enforcer's behalf or whatever. Anyway, I'm also just sitting there like, at this point the only reason these trials are even remotely entertaining is because of her, so the king just needs to like sit back for a second. Okay, but before the final trial, Kai has this nightmare and Pei like comforts him. Why can't I not talk? And then they kiss again. But then the next morning, the king's like, you have to kill her. If you maybe you have to kill her, so make sure you do, because I need you to win. And then the last trial is like this massive hedge maze, giving Harry Potter and Goblet of Fire, anyone? And the goal basically is to get to the center and kill whoever the prisoner is that's waiting there, except when Pei gets to the center, who's the prisoner who's waiting there? And the only person that she cares about in this entire world, and it's Adina, her bestie boo. But before she can react, another contestant kills Adina anyway, so she's not able to save her. That was real sad, especially because after this I was going to read Powerful and I didn't realise that Powerful was going to be from Adina's perspective. Great. Anyway, and then at that point the resistance storms in, and then the silencers that the resistance have are shutting the powers down, and Kit feels betrayed because he felt like he trusted Pei, but she helped them. And then everything's like literally and emotionally on fire, and Kai is fighting everyone off, and the king's losing control, and Pei's like heartbroken and like la la la, but she's like also doesn't know what to do, so she like literally runs away. And then Pei goes back to the castle to grab a vest that Adina made from her, because obviously made for her, because that's her best friend and she wants something to grieve by. But she runs into the king, who basically tells her Kai is the one that killed your father. In my head I'm like, yeah, but you probably told him too. But anyway, and she's like, what the hell? But then the king attacks Pei, slashes her and brands her, and then she grabs his sword and kills him right there, because like her father and Adina, la la la. But there's also, I feel like I haven't been mentioning this, some people have a power called sight, and they're basically like walking video cameras, and that's how they've been streaming this whole thing. So the sights are recording everything, so the entire kingdom sees that she's killed the king. And then Kai's like, what the hell? And then Kai finds her like literally straight away. They lock eyes, but he lets her go. But he does say that if I ever see you again, like, I'm not gonna feel anything, and like I won't for a second not kill you, whatever. And then obviously now, because the king is dead, Kit becomes king, and now suddenly the sweet idealistic Kit, he's gone, and now he's cold and angry. And what's his first order as king? He tells Kai, now his enforcer, to hunt Paedyn down. That's it. That's how the book ends. That was crazy. When I was reading it, I was like, it was such an easy read, like you could easily get through it. So yeah, Powerless has like morally grey characters, a strong heroine, kind of, I guess. You get found family, bit of betrayal, bit of revolution, emotional damage. I was just trying to think if there's any questions that you did. Let's go. Any questions that, like, and any theories? So far, why do some people have powers and why do others don't? Not sure. I do think somehow that Pei is gonna have powers and she just doesn't know it yet, or they're like not unlocked. Why did the king hate powerless people? I don't really know, because surely you could control the non-powerful people anyway. Like, what the prize was for the trials was like literally just like honor and dignity. I don't believe there was an actual like prize. But yeah, crazy, like the fact that she saved him and a whole bunch of things. But yeah, I feel like it goes from enemies to lovers to enemies again, and Fourth Wing did something similar. So anyway, I think that I gave you a whole little rundown, and I think it's been 20 minutes, so I don't think that's too bad, do you? I mean, I was gonna say you can read it, it's good, but also I've just told you the plot. But maybe I always do this. I've already read it and then listened to a recap. So maybe you've already read it and now you're watching the recap. So have fun. Okay.